Welcome back, fight fans. We're back. There's probably going to be a lot of lag, and it's probably going to look terrible because technology hates me. But we're going to push through it anyway, hopefully, and keep the show going. We're going to obviously start with last week's card. That's UFC Vegas 62. Grasso and Araujo. Had to think about that for a second. And then BFL 74, as I mentioned, that was actually last Wednesday, right after this stream last week. And then, of course, the biggest card of the year, UFC 280. I mean, I can't wait for this. This is going to be absolutely insane. Genuinely might be, I mean, it's really shaping up to be the best card I've ever seen. I mean, this is absolutely insane. And then next week, after that, you've got, I think, yeah, Sunday. On Sunday, you've actually got, which I just realized is actually, well, actually, I guess it's not quite after the pay-per-view, but anyway, the next day, Sunday, you've got the road to UFC, the second round. I actually didn't talk about it, I don't think. The first round, I watched it. I don't think I wrote about it or talked about it, except for just mentioning that it had happened. But next week, we are actually going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what happens in those, I believe they're the semifinals of the tournaments in each division there. That's pretty exciting. I can't wait to watch that too. It was so cool the first round. I really love that kind of thing. I really wish they would get more of those going. I really do. And I mean, I think they probably will eventually. I mean, they're in Asia doing it now. You know, Africa, probably the next place that makes sense to do that kind of thing. Or, I mean, if you're going to go with a huge, deep talent pool, of course, probably South America would be the place to do it. I mean, you know, Brazil, Mexico. Well, I guess Mexico is technically still north, but you know what I mean. But yeah, that would be another great area to go to. I don't know what they're going to do next. Of course, they haven't talked about that at all because they're still in the semifinals of this one. But I would like to see that. Anyway, enough of all that. UFC Vegas 62. That's where we're opening up with today. And we're going to start, of course, with the prelims. I already see a little bit of lag. We're going to start with the prelims. That opened with Pete Rodriguez, Mike Jackson. I mean, did anybody think anything else was going to happen other than a first round KO? Because that is exactly what I put the money on. It's exactly what happened. I really don't think it could have ended any other way, really. I mean, yeah, it's just brutal. We're never gonna see Mike Jackson again. Fair enough. I mean, you know, just not good. Not really that good. I honestly don't even know why they asked him to do the last fight, and just baffled that they gave him the second fight again. I mean, well, technically third fight, I guess, or actually, I think it might even be technically the fourth fight because one of them was no contest. But yeah, no clue as to why they kept bringing him back. He has never looked good at any moment, so I thought it was a little bit weird, but here we are. And exactly as we expected, not even close, just a complete wash for Rodriguez. Just destroyed him every second of that fight and ended up putting him to sleep against the fence, full on unconscious in the first round. I didn't write down how long it took, but it really wasn't that long. It was about 2 minutes, I think, 2-3 minutes or something. Yeah, exactly what we expected. After that, CJ Vergara, Tatsuro Taira. Uh, and this is actually one that we talked about last week. It was one of the prelims we talked about. And I was saying I kind of saw that Tyra was probably going to be getting a finish here. That's how I was going for it. Otherwise, a pretty dominant decision. And not that Vergara isn't good. I actually thought it was going to be pretty close on the feet and that Vergara might have him definitely, I would say probably had him on the feet. That's what I was thinking. And then when you get the grappling going, Tyra was going to get the advantage there, probably get a submission in there. And I was actually thinking the second round too. I nailed this one 100% perfect on this one. But I mean, it makes a lot of sense because Vergara, more so a striker, Taira, very well rounded. And that's what we saw. Really the whole fight, Taira was just absolutely relentless with that grappling, never stopped looking for the grappling, pushing the pace there, and then dragging him down, trying to get a submission, always looking for the finish. And that's what you want to see. I hate all this garbage where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna hold the guy down, just grapple him and whatever. It's just so boring. At least, get some ground and pound, get some elbows in there, some chippy shots in there at some point. Don't just hold them. Like, get something, get some damage. You need to do something, or else really you're doing nothing. And that does nothing for you on the card. So it's silly to not do that now, especially that they're really emphasizing the damage, or at least really going hard for those submissions. And that's exactly what he was doing. That's what we love to see. So I really like Taira as a prospect for sure. And yeah, that's, like I said, that's exactly what happened. Just dominated him until he ended up getting that submission in the second round. A lot of people are like, "Whoa, future champ, future champ. We're gonna have a new Japanese champ here." I mean, listen, I don't know. I'm not saying that. I think people are getting a little ahead of themselves on that. I mean, does he look good? Yes, he is a very good prospect. He's 22 though. Let's keep that in mind. He's 22, just got in there. Yes, he beat somebody that was decent, but he's not even ranked either. And honestly, he wasn't really that close to being ranked necessarily. I mean, was he in the top 30? Yeah. Top 20? Maybe on the edge, maybe 22, 23, somewhere around there. That's probably where Vergara was. So he's definitely a solid opponent. But I mean, that's you're getting ahead of yourself trying to give him somebody even in the top 10 in the next couple fights. I just don't think I just don't think we're talking about that yet. I think he's probably got one, he might be able to handle the bottom of the top 15 in the next one, 15, 14, 13, somewhere around there. But honestly, I think he's probably got at least one, maybe even two more fights outside of the top 15 before he even gets in that far. Because, it's really, I would say, the stand up more so than anything. I mean, he's got the grappling, he's got the pace, he's got the cardio, he's got the submission skills. But, you need the fight IQ still. You need the stand up. You need to put it all together. And I mean, again, he's 22. Like, let's be reasonable here. Like, he needs to, and he wasn't like, he didn't absolutely wash him out completely. I mean, we're going to be talking about Muhammad Mokaev later today. And I mean, what he did, what he did in his first fight, you'd have to keep doing that over and over and over again. Then you're going to start talking about, okay, give him somebody in the top 15, even the top 10 right now. But that's not what he's doing. So, slow down a little bit. Slow down a little bit with those predictions there. But do I think that he's going to be cracking into the top 10 within the next couple of years? Honestly, yeah, I do. But, it's going to take a few fights to get there. That's all I'm saying. But he does look like a very good prospect, and I like him. He's a funny guy. He looks like a pretty entertaining, pretty nice guy. The third fight, Pieta Rodriguez, Sam Hughes. Knew this was going to be close. I was a little bit worried, honestly, going into this, because I did go with Rodriguez, but I know how Hughes is, and Hughes is a very underrated fighter. Nobody talks about her at all, really. I mean, I've never heard about anybody talking about Sam Hughes, to be honest. But I've noticed in her last couple fights that she really, and I have picked her in her last couple fights too, that people haven't been giving her the shot. She's been the underdog, and I've been cashing in on that a couple of times. But this time, I thought that Rodriguez was, gonna do fairly well. And she did, but she started to struggle as the fight went on. It was definitely a cardio kind of issue, and it's not even that Rodriguez was necessarily, she doesn't necessarily have terrible cardio. It's more so that Sam Hughes has amazing cardio, and it just kind of stood out that, okay, Sam Hughes is kind of getting her thing going here more so to the point where, yeah, to the point where I had to check just to make sure. I actually gave the fight towards Hughes. I mean, the first round, let's see. Uh, yeah, it was pretty close both of the opening rounds. I'm trying to see here what I said. It was really close the whole fight. I ended up having it tied going into the third round. And then I had the last round for Hughes because she just had the better cardio. She was doing more at the end there. So I thought it was kind of enough, but it was so dead even that I really could have seen it going either way. And I mean, still happy, obviously, that my pick, Pieta Rodriguez, did win. So I'm definitely not complaining. But, I thought maybe the judges were going to lean the other way. They did unanimously go 29-28 for the still undefeated Pieta Rodriguez on that one. And you know what? Again, it was close enough. I'm not, that's not going to be a contender at the end of the month for worst card of the month. Let's just say that, pretty fair. Honestly, actually, now that I think about it, I haven't seen a card this entire month a judge's card, I should say, that was like, what is going on? I haven't seen that this month yet. So I'm assuming we're going to see that on the pay-per-view. I'm already preparing myself for that, and which makes sense too. It is a pay-per-view. It's not in Vegas. That is usually when those scorecards go straight out the window, straight into the land of make believe. That's where we're going to be heading, I'm sure, on some of those judges' cards. I hope not. I hope it doesn't affect some, I mean, my God, if we get robbed in one of those title fights like that, fuck. I hope that doesn't happen. Oh my goodness. And I could see that happening too. I could very much see that happening. I hope I'm not right about this. Because I'm actually predicting that there is going to be a finish in the bantamweight title fight, and we'll get into that later. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I could definitely see the judges going either way. If it gets to that unanimous decision, because we've seen that. We have seen that in pretty much each of the fights that these guys have gone in. I mean, the Jan and Sterling fight, the last one. I mean, I was one of those people that thought that Jan won. I thought it was kind of close, but still, I thought that Jan won. So, I mean, that was a split. I think that ended up being a split. Could be wrong about that. But I know, and then the Sandhagen and Dillashaw one. I mean, like, I thought pretty clearly Sandhagen won that too. So, I mean, they're kind of both involved in these weird decisions. So I would not be surprised if we saw another one there. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we do see a finish instead. I just hope we see all finishes. That's really the goal every single fight. Let's see some finishes. I don't want to see these garbage split decisions or garbage decisions ruined by the judges. Anyway, moving on. So that was the third fight. The fourth fight, Joanderson, Brito, Lucas Alexander. I mean, again, this was like the first fight of the night with Pete Rodriguez and Mike Jackson there. I mean, this was literally, I don't think this really could have ended any other way than a first round finish. Wasn't sure if it was going to be a KO or a submission because Brito is very well rounded like that. But yeah, I mean, once again, just a complete wash. And it was expected. I mean, Brito already looking to be one of the best rising contenders. I was going to say rookies, but I don't think he's a rookie anymore. I think this is his second year. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't write it down. I don't know if I wrote it down or not. I didn't write rookie anywhere, so I don't think he's a rookie anymore. But I think he's in his second year from what I remember. But anyway, clearly one of the top prospects in the division going against somebody brand new and not really with an impressive outside, record outside of the UFC either. So, I mean, I didn't really think it was going to end any other way than a first round finish. Again, I bet on that too and cashed in again. What are we saying here? Oh yeah. Didn't really look for any stand-up things here, but I think it was really because he knew how much of an advantage he was going to have in the grappling, and that's exactly what he did. Just threw him around really, and then ended up taking his back, locked in the as a backpack too. That's right, and then got the rear naked choke easily. And actually put him to sleep on the canvas there for a little bit. So another very, very impressive win. And this kind of reminds me of, a similar situation. Well, maybe not actually. I was going to say a similar situation to Taira, but not actually at all. I mean, he's proven that he does have, in the past at least, full 3-round. Oh, he actually still hasn't proven. That's right. He still has not proven that he's gotten the 3-round cardio. So, I'm not sure about that part of it, which makes me hesitant to throw him into a top 15 fight. And that's actually exactly what he called for, was a top 15, kind of technically even really top 10 fight against Dan Ige. And that's pretty brave. I don't know. That's a pretty big call out for him. I mean, does he have the skill, the power, and the submission game? Yes, he definitely does. But the problem is, Ige is one of the hardest people to finish. He does not get finished, and he has cardio for the entire fight guaranteed. So that's a risky call out. That's a risky call out on that one. And I'm not sure about that one. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out for him. I like the call out though. Pretty brave. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. So I don't know how I'm going to go with that if that one ends up happening, but would it be entertaining? Hell yeah, it would be. After that, Jacob Malkoon, Nick Maximov. This one, I mean, on paper, was literally dead even. I mean, it really could have gone either way. The odds themselves were also going either way on it. Who knew what was going to happen in this one? I figured that we were going to see Nick Maximov because I thought he was probably the better, maybe the better wrestler, but definitely had the better stand-up. That's kind of what I thought we were going to see. And you know what? At the start of the fight, the first round, that's actually what we were seeing. That's exactly what we were seeing, is Maximov was kind of leading every exchange that they were having, and that in the grappling and the striking. I mean, I thought it was pretty clear that Maximov was kind of doing a little bit more there. And then sadly, Maximov got kind of screwed. I think it wasn't necessarily anything that Malkoon did. He tweaked his knee. It looked a little bit, or I think it was his knee from what I remember. Might have been his ankle. Do I see anything that I wrote? No, I just kind of mentioned his leg because I don't think anybody really knew full on what was happening. It looked more so like his knee though. But it was definitely, something on the leg. So yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, after that, really had no chance whatsoever. I mean, he had no power in the striking anymore because it was on his back leg, which is where you get your power from. Also for the takedowns, that is once again where you get your power from, unless you're used to using both legs to push off of. And that's honestly not really a common thing that's done. So, it was rough. You can't really do anything after that, because if it's that painful, and I mean, I'm sure as you've noticed, fighters, pretty tough people. They don't normally show pain. You can't normally tell that you've hurt them unless, they're stumbling around or something, but they don't normally show the pain on their face like, they don't normally make faces like that. So for him to do that, especially somebody as tough as Maximov, because we know, he trains with he's part of the Diaz army over there at the Nate Diaz Academy. So, I know he's a pretty tough guy, and he made it through all that entire 15 minutes. And I would say probably about 12 of those minutes he was hurt like that. So clearly a tough guy. Clearly was really, really struggling, really painful, whatever it was, to do with the knee or something like that. So, but I mean, yeah, when that happens, pretty much impossible to come back from that. But you're never going to give up, of course. I mean, he was never just going to be like, I give up. Like, no, of course he's going to keep trying, but it's kind of a long shot at that point. So, rough time for Nick Maximov. Yeah, I don't know. There's not too much else to say. Just kind of a really bad luck, to be honest. I mean, if he was completely healthy and that wouldn't have happened, who knows? I'm not saying he would have won easily. I'm definitely not saying that, but it definitely, without a doubt, it would have been way more competitive. And I'm sure he probably would have won at least one of those rounds. So it would have been a much more competitive fight. So, in terms of the bets, yeah, it sucks because I picked Maximov. But, even outside of that, it just sucks to see somebody have to go through that. And it wasn't even near the end of the fight where it's like, oh, you can just play it off for a couple minutes. Like, no, it was seriously, a solid 11 or 12 minutes that he was dealing with that problem. Barely able to really stand up normally because he was struggling that much. It was a problem. It was, well, actually, no, he was able to stand up, but, couldn't really get anything going because he couldn't really strike properly and he couldn't really grapple properly. So there's nothing left really. And he couldn't do much on the ground. Again, he couldn't get back up. He couldn't reverse. He couldn't do anything because you need the knee. You need your legs. You need the power from your legs to do all those kind of things. Just didn't have it. Anyway, we're over analyzing. We're over talking about stuff like that. But anyway, sucks to see that. And then Malkoon, of course, won the unanimous decision there very easily. Sixth one. This was the third. Yeah, the third. Really, the third? The third parlay that I had talked about last time? Oh, yeah, Brito was the second. Mana Martinez, Brandon Davis. Knew this one was going to be fairly close. And I figured Mana would have that stand-up advantage. I mean, he's younger and he's been slightly more impressive recently. So kind of figured he would have the edge. So I did pick him by decision. But you know what? He had a lot of opportunities to end that fight. I mean, as if you were watching the fight, good God, did his corner, now I can't remember his name, famous corner who we always see all the time. My memory is terrible, so I can't remember his name right now. But he is also a fighter, and now I can't remember what his name is. Anyway, yeah, anyway, his corner was yelling at him saying, listen, you've dropped him a couple of times now. Don't showboat. I mean, he wasn't really showboating, but don't mess around. Like, get in there, get the finish. And he could have done that. He really could have done that. I would say 2 or 3 separate times. So, I mean, it was definitely dominant at times for sure. But it was close enough, especially I believe it was in the third round that I really wasn't sure how they were going to go with this. Personally, it was the second round that was pretty close because the first round, I would say, Mana had the extra output. Second round, Davis dominated. He dominated that round until I think it was about 30 seconds left. Yeah, it was about 30 seconds left. And then Mana Martinez just went off and just annihilated him. He dropped him, I think it was 2 or 3 times in the last 30 seconds. Really, I mean, if he had done that 20 seconds earlier, it would have been a second round TKO for Mana Martinez, 100%, because there was no way he was recovering from that. Even honestly, the fact that he got into the third round and kept going in the third round. That was mind-blowing that he recovered that easily, because Martinez absolutely destroyed him at the end of that second round. And that's actually what made a difference on the cards, because really, I mean, you had to have him up 2 rounds at that point because of all that damage he did at the second. But one of the judges, idiot, one of the judges did not give him the second round. We're talking about damage here. This actually might be, now that I think about it, that might be one of the stupider cards I've seen all month, now that I think about it, because it was clearly Martinez that won with the first and the second round, if that's how they scored it, because I didn't actually look at the scorecards. But from what I heard after, that's exactly how it was scored. It was the second round that people were kind of, I mean, the judges were split on, was that second round, which makes no sense. And then Davis won the third. So it really came down to that second round. But I mean, like I said, when you get multiple knockdowns right at the end of the round and basically finish the fight, you know, screw the rest of the second round, screw the rest of the round. Like, he almost won the fight. He almost knocked him out. He knocked him down multiple times. You won that round, clearly. Nothing, if nothing else happened the rest of the round, which it didn't. So that's a pretty clear 29-28 for Martinez. But anyway, I digress. These judges are terrible. Judges are always terrible, honestly. They have no idea what they're doing sometimes. Well, some of them. I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them. Main card after that, Misha Serkunov, Alonzo Menifield. Oh, I feel sad for my Canadians, my fellow Canadians, over and over again. Here we go again, getting absolutely the short end of the stick, getting absolutely destroyed. That is exactly what happened here. Serkunov, and you know what? I called it again here too. I don't think there was really any other way this was going to end. I mean, Serkunov getting absolutely destroyed in most of his last fights. He's 2-6 in his last 8. Multiple first round KO losses. Then he's going against Alonzo Menifield, who is more of a KO kind of guy. Huge guy. I mean, first round KO all day. And that's exactly what happened here. Was not really even close. In fact, one of, I would say, top 5, I would say, scariest KOs I've ever seen, for sure, because he was out bad. Like, you don't normally see that. I think, actually, now that I think about it, I've only seen this happen one other time, and it was when Kevin Lee knocked out Gillespie. Was it Gillespie he knocked out like that? With the head kick, and he knocked him out cold, and he was out for, all of the replays, some of the commercial break as well, and then finally he recovered and woke up there, and that was a scary one. This is exactly the same. The ref, I think it was Herb Dean actually, the ref didn't quite get in there fast enough, and Menifield did not stop when Serkunov was already asleep. He hit him with, I would say, 1 or 2 more on top of that, really hard. So he was already fully unconscious after he had hit the ground, and then he hit him with 1 or 2 more huge ones after that. It was bad. Head back, the head off the canvas a couple of times. Bad. And that is when you see some really scary things going on. So, he was fully unconscious all throughout all the replays and the commercial break as well. And just as we were getting back from the commercial break, he started to wake up, and then they were clapping there. And that's when it's fucked up. When people start clapping that you're still alive, and it's pretty rough. It's pretty bad. So yeah, that was a rough one to watch. But yeah, amazing win, obviously, though, still for Alonzo Menifield. And the Canadians getting screwed over once again. That's probably one less Canadian that we will be seeing in the UFC. And sadly, I think that's going to happen once again this week. I hate to say it, because we've got another Canadian kind of on a losing streak, not necessarily doing that well, who is probably going to get finished in the first or the second round, sadly. Hate to keep seeing it, but here we are again. But we're going to talk about that later. After that, Rafael Asunciao and Victor Henry. This was, I would say, by far the most surprising one of the night. I don't think anybody really saw this coming to this extent for sure. I mean, I don't really know anybody, honestly, that was, excuse me, even picking Asunciao on this one. And he dominated. It wasn't even close. Excuse me. Yeah, I had Henry by finish on this one, like a lot of people did, I think, because Asunciao has been knocked out was knocked out, I should say, in, yeah, 3 out of the 4 of his last losses, which were his last 4 fights, knocked out in 3 out of those 4. And I mean, considering how good Henry is, especially with what he did to Barcelos, I saw a KO coming, or a late KO or a dominant decision. And I think that's what most people were seeing. And then we got into the fight, and it was like, what is going on here? Asunciao honestly looked like a completely different guy than his last couple of fights. And Henry, I don't know what was going on. He was not doing as well as the other fight, not even close. Didn't really get anything going. And I mean, it was because of the grappling for sure. Asunciao even said that was the plan. It wasn't even to hold him down. He said actually all he wanted to do was shut down the momentum and shut down the striking of Henry by the pressure, especially by getting the grappling going, throwing him to the ground, and then even just kind of letting him back up, holding him down there for 15, 20, 30 seconds, then letting him back up, break up the rhythm like that. And that's what he did. Didn't want to hold him down. Didn't want to get in there because then, you're at risk for submissions at that point. But if you keep just throwing them down, that just throws off their entire rhythm. And that's what he did. That's what he did for 3 straight rounds, and it worked perfectly. Ended up getting 30-27 on all 3 cards, just dominated. So yeah, did not see that one coming at all. Very impressed, honestly. And I ended up giving him the most valuable fighter bonus for that, because that's pretty impressive what he just did. After that, Dushko Todorovic, Jordan Wright. I think everybody kind of figured there was going to be a finish at some point in this fight. Both guys really exclusively dealing with finishes, especially Jordan Wright, who has never fought outside of the second round. He has only ever won or lost in the first or the second round. This was actually his longest fight. So that, again, tells you there was probably going to be a finish here. And I had Todorovic just because of what he's been doing recently. He seems like the more well-rounded guy. He's been doing better against higher caliber opponents. So that's where I was going on this one. And not going to lie, a little bit worried in the first round there. Todorovic got absolutely swept on that first round. Wright clearly dominated, mostly with heavy ground and pound and control on the ground there. So clearly winning the first round there was Wright. But then Dushko came back in, listening to his corners, which he credited the win to, and dominated in that second round, got the finish there in the second. Amazing. Then we had the co-main event. Amazing. We knew this was going to be a good one, an entertaining one. Jonathan Martinez, Cub Swanson. I had Martinez by decision. I thought that was pretty fair. I mean, both of them end up in a lot of decisions, so that's where I was going with that one. But of course, with Cub Swanson, this was the first time he was making it down to bantamweight. How is he going to look there? He's also kind of getting to the end of his career while Martinez is on his way up. It's a lot of factors that go towards Martinez, and we knew that he was a very difficult striker to deal with and a pretty well-rounded guy. So, I thought it was pretty fair to assume that Martinez was going to win this, unless Cub, was going to land some huge shot that was going to get a knockout, which could have happened, but did not. What was I going to say here? It was, maybe a fairly close fight at first, and then not really so much. Near the end of the first, Martinez was starting to get all of his combos going. It was looking dead even. I even wrote that down, actually. But then Martinez landed a massive one near the end of the round. Dropped Swanson with a huge knee. Melted him against the fence. And really, I mean, it was about 5 seconds away from getting stopped. Like, it was genuinely going to be a first round KO there. Got very lucky to get out of that round. Swanson got very lucky. Saved by the bell 100% on that one. And, when it's that close to being stopped, usually they don't recover in between rounds. And that's exactly what we saw. He hadn't really fully recovered at that point. And then Martinez just kind of swarmed in, which is exactly what you would expect a top contender to do. He knew he still had him hurt, obviously. So he ran in there, put the pressure on right away, and kept it going. And I actually thought it was going to end right at the start of the second there. But then Swanson did actually recover. But then we saw all of those leg kicks. And that's actually what ended the fight there, was those leg kicks. And my God, were those leg kicks nasty. I would never want to get kicked by one of those. I can tell you that. That would be horrible to feel. So, and then you never see a leg kick KO. So that was crazy to, that's awesome to see. Had to be KO of the night. Amazing performance by Jonathan Martinez. And really, I hope people are paying attention to him now, because I mean, he is so underrated. People do not pay attention to this guy at all. So you really got to watch out for this guy. He is very, very good. And I think people are starting to realize that now, especially with this result here. Main event after that, Alexa Grasso, Viviani Araujo. Good thing I hate Amazon Alexa, because I'm going to be saying Alexa a lot here. Good thing we don't have one here. Anyway, Alexa Grasso, Viviani Araujo. I had Grasso by decision, and it's for the exact reason that we actually ended up seeing here. We knew that her striking was going to be better. She is a very, very talented striker, mostly boxer, really. I mean, obviously a little bit more well-rounded than that now, but that is how she started out. And we saw that. The boxing very much on point, and that is exactly what won her the fight. We knew the cardio was going to be there. We knew the striking was going to be there. Really, all we needed to know, and I figured this was going to happen, and I even said this. I compared Grasso to Yan Xiaonan, who we saw in the event before this. I mean, Yan has good takedown defense, and she's got good striking. That's all you need when you've got a specialist like this. And that's what Dern was, If she couldn't get her takedowns going, she was going to lose. And that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what I saw this time too. It's exactly what I said last week. I said, Grasso, all she's got to do, have the takedown defense on point, get the striking going, she's going to win. And that's exactly what happened. She pushed to all 5 rounds and, shut down almost all those takedowns. I think that, she did land a couple. And actually, Grasso even went for a couple of takedowns herself and submission attempts herself, just to switch it up a bit. And I mean, personally, I thought it was it really was close. I mean, every single one of these rounds was pretty close. It's not like she ran away with it. I mean, I would say the scorecards were a little bit generous. I didn't think she won every single round. And I actually even thought that there might have been a couple of judges out there that might have actually gone the other way with it because of the way that it was going. But it was very, very close. I had Grasso winning the first 2 rounds pretty clearly. But even the corners, actually, if you listen to the corners in between the rounds, and I thought the same thing, I kind of thought it was tied going into the 5th round. And that's what the corners were saying too. They thought it might have been tied. Both of them said that. They were very, very close on that. So I think the judges might have been a little bit favoring that Alexa Grasso side a little bit, probably because of maybe the pace a little bit, maybe the striking. I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was going to be a little bit closer on the scorecards. Again, not a robbery for sure. Definitely not saying Araujo earned the win by any means, not even close. But do I think that it was 50-45 for Grasso? No, not really. And that's what one of the judges had it. Two of them had it 49-46. Definitely more fair. I would have had it 48-47. I thought it was really that close, but 49-46 does make a lot of sense. I could see that happening. 50-45, I don't know if I agree with that one. I think she had at least one round in there. Anyway, what's next though? Shevchenko, honestly, I would be a little upset actually, especially if I was Tyler Santos, if Santos doesn't get the rematch, because like a lot of people, I think it was pretty clear that Tyler Santos won that fight. I don't even really know how you could argue that Shevchenko won 3 of those rounds. 2 of those rounds, clearly, yeah, I think she definitely won. But the third round, that third round, and I don't think it was actually the exact third round, but I just think that there were 3 rounds that you could clearly argue that Santos won, whereas Shevchenko, I just didn't see that. So I think that'll be what's next for the belt and Santos. I think that's kind of what we should be seeing. Will we see that? I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see. Personally, I don't think that Grasso, well, she's even said that she doesn't want that fight right now. And personally, I'd be saying the same thing. I don't want that fight either. I would that's a terrible matchup right now. To go from Araujo straight up to Shevchenko. I think that's suicide. You're obviously going to lose that matchup. Like that's just not even going to be close. I think she, like Grasso said, I think she needs one more fight. That's it. Just one more fight against somebody who's very good. And I'm actually thinking the winner of this weekend, Chookagian Fiorot, I think that's what we're going to be seeing. We're going to be seeing those 2 winners stack up against each other, Grasso, and then the winner of Chookagian and Fiorot. And then we'll see, Shevchenko and Tyler Santos. I think that's kind of the only thing that really makes a whole lot of sense here. Because then you've got a clear matchup. You've got a clear person challenging for the title after Santos and Shevchenko. It just makes a lot of sense. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. That seems like the perfect setup. And Grasso actually even alluded to that before this week, saying that this was kind of like a semifinal almost, and then the other semifinal were those 2 this weekend. And yeah, I do think that's the obvious way to go. So I think that's what we'll be seeing, but who knows? Let's not forget too, Jessica Andrade could come back up. She is always in the mix anywhere. I think she's probably doing better at 115 pounds, but yeah, she is all over there too. And people have not been talking about her at all. And like, come on, it's Jessica Andrade. Come on, do not forget about her. She is insanely good. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, whatever it is, it's quite the division. I like the flyweight division for the women, and you gotta love the strawweights as well, of course. Anyway, good week for bets though. For my picks, 3-0 on the prelims with Taira, Brito, and Martinez. And then we got 4-1 on the main card with a shocking loss from Victor Henry. That was the only loss, and we've got all the other ones. So pretty good week. Finally, we're back in it. I don't know. I'm feeling a lot better. I think maybe I was just taking it too seriously. Like I was putting too much into my picks. I really do think I was, because now that I've loosened it up and looked at it from farther back, actually spending less time than ever on my pick, less time than I have been on my picks the last few months, we're doing better again. I think I honestly think that we're going to start getting better again soon. I was just pushing too much. I think that's what it was. But anyway, that aside, my picks aside, then I did pick more. Let's go with the bonuses now that I picked. You got KO of the night, had to be Jonathan Martinez with the leg kick KO. You never see that kind of thing. Absolutely amazing. So for sure, one with that one. Sub of the night for me, Tatsuro Taira. Could have gone with Brito, but I mean, the Taira one was just more impressive. Tougher opponent in comparison. Also, really had to work for it the entire time. And it was also just just a better submission anyway. Well, actually, maybe not, because backpacking it is pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, I was just more impressed by what Taira was doing. So I gave it to him on that one. Brawl of the night. I was, yeah, I honestly don't even really think it was that close. I think it had to be Mana Martinez and Brandon Davis. It was the only one that was close that was also entertaining because, yes, the main event was close, but, I'm not trying to sound mean, but honestly, it was one of the most boring 5-round fights I've ever seen. It was definitely in the top 10 for like, meh, especially in terms of 5-round fights. So that was not going to be getting it. And then we had a lot of short finishes too. So not a whole lot of options to work with on this one. I thought that was the only one that made sense. And there were knockdowns, there was blood, there was a lot of action, nonstop action, really. So I thought that was a pretty clear choice for fight of the night. Then most valuable fighter, I said it already, Rafael Assunção. Not only is he 40, which is pretty impressive that he's honestly still in that top 15 kind of conversation, that he might actually possibly be getting back into the top 15, because I don't think he was going into this fight because of those losses. But, he might maybe get another shot at the top 15 now. That's impressive. But not only that, he was on a 4-fight losing streak, 3 of which he got KO'd in, overcame that, and dominated this time. And it wasn't even over somebody that, somebody terrible or something. Like, this guy just dominated Raoni Barcelos in his UFC debut. So, it's like, this is a good guy. He's good. Like, Victor Henry is still very, very talented. So, all that together, I don't think anybody deserved it more than Rafael Assunção. It's just a story that you love to hear. And that's what you want to see from the UFC veterans. You don't want to see what's happening with, Ferguson is one of those guys. You don't want to see you don't want to see that constantly happening. You don't want to see legends get absolutely destroyed over and over and over again. Like, it's uncomfortable. It really is. It's uncomfortable to watch because you like them so much, you respect them so much, and then you see them get absolutely annihilated. And, it's the same thing with Cody Garbrandt. I mean, Garbrandt's a little bit different because people don't like Garbrandt that much, some people. But so to see him get knocked out would be pretty satisfying for those people. But to be on the other side of it, it's kind of like, I want to see Cody Garbrandt do well. I don't want to see him get knocked out in a couple minutes by Kai Kara-France like that. That's brutal. And you don't want to see, like, Dan Hooker. You don't want to see Dan Hooker get submitted by Islam in, like, what was it, like a minute and a half? Like, I don't want to see that. Like, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to see these veterans get manhandled like that. So it's nice to see Assunção, a veteran like that, actually get a dominant win under their belt back like that and really competing at that level again. It's really good to see. That's why I had to give him the most valuable fighter. And that's it for that card. So we're moving on 50 minutes in. I really tried to push that as much as I could. I didn't even read any of my script. I just basically gave a quick overview of the fights. And honestly, I think that's what I'm going to keep doing from now on. As long as I remember how the fights go, it all has to do with what's up here for me. And also what I wrote down there. If I can find it in there, find the quick things that I'm looking for. We're still working on things. We're still young. It's still it's technically my second year of doing this now. But, I'm not a pro, you know, I'm not Ariel Helwani over here. But yeah, we're still working on things, but we're getting it. We're getting it. We're fine-tuning things. Anyway, back to the BFL. Speaking of Canadians, Ariel Helwani. The BFL, Battlefield Fight League 74, almost at our milestone. BFL 75, that is in December. Cannot wait to watch that. That's going to be exciting. Man, honestly, now that I think about it, it really bugs me that I can't go to things in person. I'm still recovering from a lot of things. I won't obviously talk about that on the stream, but man, I wish I could go in person because it's right there. Like, I'm not even kidding. It would take me, you know, a 45-minute ride on the SkyTrain, or maybe I hire an Uber or something like that. Again, it would probably be still about an hour. But, you know, I'm basically an hour away from this, from BFL 75. I could go see it, but yeah, sadly not in the cards for me. Anyway, hope maybe I'll get there. 100, BFL 100. I'll see you there. I will see you at BFL 100. I hope I'm there for that. Anyway, that aside, let's get back to the actual action of BFL. Always, I love watching these cards. I really, really do. Because they're always way better than you think they're going to be. It's like, oh, regional MMA, how good could it be? Trust me, watch the cards. Really, I mean this. Watch the cards. I'm not even sponsored by these things. Watch the cards. They really are good. If you're an MMA fan, watch these cards, especially if you're a Canadian fight fan. Watch this card. That aside, moving on to the actual fight. Opened up with what was actually supposed to be an amateur an amateur fight for I believe, yeah, it was the flyweight belt it was supposed to be for. Instead, I would say actually a smart decision. I actually talked to one of these guys. I talked to Sina Maani a little bit after, and I was saying, you know what? I would say this was the right choice. I think this was the perfect choice to make, because guess what? You're not going to be seen in that amateur flyweight title. Nobody's going to see that. But what they are going to see is you opening the card on UFC Fight Pass. And then, you know, it's just a way bigger crowd. So I think both of them made the right decision on that. And it was an entertaining fight to watch. I mean, David Chen came in hard the first round. My God. Heavy underdog. And I mean, I picked against him too, not gonna lie. Not that I don't like the guy actually, but because I don't follow him, but I do follow Demers, who he is going out with. Anyway, so I do see him around on the Insta there. But you know, just the records alone, that kind of seemed to be in favor of Manny. But my God, did David Chen? I was like, oh shit, he came to fight. He ran in there like Khabib, honestly, went for the double leg, pushed him against the fence, and pretty much held him there the entire round. So Chen clearly dominated him in the first round, winning that round. But you could kind of tell probably does not have the cardio quite yet to keep up that pace, because that is quite the pace to keep up. Even people that are like, you know, in the UFC that are like really, really intensely into their cardio, even people like that have a very hard time keeping up that kind of pace. So I kind of figured second round, you know, Sina Maani kind of just letting David Chen do his thing in the first round, tiring himself out essentially. And then Sina Maani came in and then got it in the second round. He ended up using that. You know, Chen clearly slowing down, struggling now to get his kind of power back from overexerting himself a little bit that first round. And then, Sina Maani ended up getting, what did he do? Oh yeah, he used his extra strength that he still had from that opening round to drag him down to the canvas. And then Maani locked in the deep choke, really threatening the finish. Chen did slip out of it trying to defend, and he was doing a pretty good job of defending, but eventually, you know, you don't have the energy anymore. You don't have the breathing down. You're still struggling. It's just not there anymore. And Manny ended up getting the finish from there for a second round submission. Very impressive. Honestly, I was actually pretty impressed with both of them. I mean, that's their debut, and they did really, really well. So, yes, Chen, I would say definitely gassed himself out because of the first round there. But, they both did look pretty talented, and I was pretty impressed for their debut. Second fight, Makinde Adeyemi, Brandon Lebrecht. Brandon Lebrecht being, I think, a fairly significant favorite in this. Oh, actually, maybe this one was kind of close. There was one that was close on the odds, and I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been this one. Anyway, I had Lebrecht. I mean, he had a much better record, that's for sure. But I knew it was going to be fairly close because I actually remember seeing Makinde Adeyemi in the last card where he got his first win because he was 1-3 going into this one. Actually, was he? Did he? I can't remember. I can't remember actually the result, but I remember thinking, this guy is way better than his record suggests. So I was a little worried about this one, and clearly that worry was warranted because it ended up being that Adeyemi won the decision on this. Let's see. Adeyemi was the one who landed big first, wobbled the legs of Lebrecht. Lebrecht landed a couple of good ones, but Adeyemi, it was just the power difference, especially in the first round. That was kind of the difference here. Lebrecht tried to get a takedown going too, but the size of Adeyemi, there really was a huge size difference. And that's really what made the difference. Because then Adeyemi reversed him, clearly won the first round on the cards. And that kind of was really the theme of the entire fight. He really was pinning him along the fence a lot, being the bigger guy, landed a lot of shots against the fence, couple of nice combos here and there. Lebrecht just wasn't really landing much of anything, especially the first two rounds. The third round, though, Lebrecht finally got it going. But still, Lebrecht did end up getting a takedown in the third, though. Then he was landing. Oh, that's what happened. Yeah, then he was landing a bunch of elbows, picking him apart on the ground, really shredding him with those elbows. Then actually took Adeyemi's back, locked in a rear naked choke. Not bad. And, it was actually looking really rough for Adeyemi, but somehow he actually ended up reversing Lebrecht and then found himself on top. Not really enough to win the round back. So I was saying it was a pretty clear 29-28. And that is actually how the judges scored it. So Lebrecht did come back at the end there, but it's just that size. That size of Adeyemi was the huge problem in this one. And that's what I was worried about going into it, because I remember thinking that in his last fight too. I was like, this guy does not look like he should be 0-3 right now. And you see that a little bit in the regional MMA, is you see people that have these bad records, but then when you see them fight, you're like, huh, wow, he might have gotten screwed in a couple of those fights. Or he just took really bad matchups for him, because he actually looks pretty good. And this was one of those cases. Anyway, Gagan, Gill, Adam DeFreitas. I was going with DeFreitas. I think it's DeFreitas, I think. I was going with DeFreitas on this one, though. But went the other way again. Let's just say I did not do that well on the betting this time. I won the 2 title fights, though, at the end here, but I lost everything else. TKO in the second round this time. DeFreitas getting his striking going pretty early, was actually doing really, really well. And he was clearly the more skilled striker. But then he followed it up with a takedown. And then they went back to their feet. Then it was Gill that actually stole the momentum of the first round, got a takedown, and finished the round with some nice ground and pound. So for me, I gave the opening round to Gill because of that takedown, but it was DeFreitas before that. Then the second round, knowing that he clearly probably lost that first round, DeFreitas did come back in with some combos, came in hard that second round, but then he got countered really hard by Gill on that one. Got rocked by him, and that was kind of where things started to turn quite a bit. DeFreitas then went for a takedown because, got rocked on the feet. And, that's usually the instant reaction there would be go for a takedown. Sadly, was reversed pretty quickly, found himself on his back, and that allowed Gill to go in for the finish. Slammed those elbows down, and yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. He actually did make it through the round. But all those elbows, really slamming those elbows down, he was saved by the bell, but he never really he definitely never recovered because DeFreitas actually crawled back to his stool on his knees, barely made it back up on the stool, wobbling all over the place, not really even able to sit up. Doctor came in, obviously then called the fight to an end. I mean, you can't let somebody fight if they can barely walk back. He couldn't actually even walk back to his stool. Like I said, he was actually crawling back on his knees back to the stool. So that should really tell you how that was going. So yeah, and it ended up giving, of course, Gill the second round TKO because of that. The next one was, I would say, by far the most surprising. I don't think a lot of people saw this one coming. I definitely didn't. I knew it was going to be probably kind of close, but I really thought that the UFC vet on this one, Tristan Connelly, was going to walk away with it convincingly, I would say. But that is not what we saw. Xavier Nash had something else in mind. Excuse me. Yeah, Connelly was walking forward pretty much the entire fight. It did go all 3 rounds, but Nash, honestly, he just dominated in the grappling. Connelly had no answer for it really whatsoever. I mean, Nash kept dominating him in the grappling, trying to submit him, get everything going like that. Connelly did lock in the odd submission here and there, trying to get it back, but it really just was not going well for him on the cards. And, he could tell too. He could tell that he was down on the cards there, was not looking good. That was the whole first round for sure. That was like that. And I mean, Connelly kept coming in, really trying to go for the submissions, trying to go for anything really. But over and over again, Xavier Nash just shut that down, got his own plan going, usually grappling, and that was it. Just basically dominated the decision. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive to do. For me, actually, he ended up being the most valuable fighter of the night because of that. Because Tristan Connelly, he's been in the UFC for quite a while. So that's pretty impressive for him to do that. And I mean, Xavier Nash also doesn't really have the most impressive record. So for him to do that, I was pretty impressed. Let's just say that. I was pretty impressed. Obviously, I mean, I did give him the bonus. Then the night finished with 2 title fights. The first one was the featherweight title fight. That was Matteo Vogel on one side, Taylor Christopher on the other side. Going into it, I mean, I didn't really know anything at all about Taylor Christopher. He didn't even have a picture on Tapology. It was kind of weird. I don't know. I was like, is this guy some kind of huge deal that I just don't know about? I don't know. It was really weird to see. And then on the other side was Matteo Vogel, who I knew was pretty good. So clearly I bet on Vogel for this one. And glad I did, because that's exactly what happened here. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. But you know what? On the first round, though, Vogel had a lot of problems. He really, really did. Christopher landed the big one first, stumbled Vogel backwards a bit there. Then Vogel was trying to get his action going from a distance. really lighting up the legs, the kicks. The kicks of Vogel were really the story of this one. Now I'm remembering what happened. Again, this was a week ago, this was a week ago. I got it written down, but I mean, it's hard to remember the intimate details of a fight that was a week ago on a regional card. Anyway, especially with my memory. So moving back, lots of leg kicks. That's what was going. Then Vogel tried to get grappling going. Huge mistake. Should not have done that. Was shut down immediately there and was actually blitzed at the end of the round there too. So clearly lost the first round on the cards. Christopher definitely won that first round. Second round, Vogel really using those leg kicks. But was really struggling with the combos of Christopher. I mean, Vogel was landing the leg kicks, but then was getting lit up by these combos of Christopher pretty regularly. And it was close. It was close the first couple of minutes. Then that's when it took over. That's when that championship pedigree, because Vogel was defending his belt. I should have mentioned that. That's when that kind of kicked in as Taylor Christopher started to slow down and Vogel kept up his pace. And that is where things started to shift there. And then that's when Vogel started to land the bigger ones and then ended up actually going for a takedown, slammed Christopher's head into the canvas, threw a couple of more bombs, and got the third round KO, defending his belt. Very, very impressive there. He really, really looks like one of those top candidates. Definitely in a conversation to get, in that contender series, in that contender series kind of conversation. He is definitely getting into that kind of realm. He is talented. And I mean, he's defended his belt now too, and he's still young, got a good record, defended his belt. That is usually when they start getting in that conversation, especially when you need Canadian fighters. You need Canadian fighters in the UFC. We don't have a whole lot of them. So, and we're losing them. We're losing them now. We're losing a lot of them. We lost Connelly. We lost, probably losing Serkinov. Might be losing one of them this weekend. We're losing Canadians left and right. So let's get one back. Let's get one new one in here. Let's get Mateo Vogel in here. That's what I want to see. Anyway, last fight of the night, the fight of the night too. This is a harder name to say. I believe it's Dean, like Dean almost. Dean Kayich. Dean Kayich. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's a tough one. Dejan is the first name, and then Kajik for the last name. It's a tough one to say. I believe it's Dean Kayich, though. Anyway, or Dayan maybe? Not sure. Against JC Jamas. And I'm not going to lie. I thought Kayich was going to run away with this one. I really did going into it. But JC, what a chin on this guy. My goodness, was he shredded apart a couple of times. And it was quite the fight. Lots of blood on both sides. Lots of action on both sides. Both of them looked like they had a really good chance of winning this fight up until the last round. I had it actually tied 2-2 going into the final round. So it really, really was that close. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about it too much. It was definitely a really good fight. So if you want to see a really solid regional fight, that would be the one to go see recently, at least. Very impressive fight. But it was all really just on the feet. So just, back and forth on the feet, couple of rounds here, like one round, one guy would land more, the other round, the other guy would land more. It was just that back and forth stand-up fight there. That was very exciting to watch. And eventually, they ended up giving it to the champ, defending his belt, Dean Kayich. And I had it the same way. Like I said, I had it tied 2-2 in the last round. So I had it 48-47 for Kayich. But I knew it was close. Like I said, it really could have gone either way. I would have been maybe slightly surprised if they would have gone with Jamas, but it really was that close that they could have gone that way. Eventually, though, the judges did go the way you would have thought it would have gone: 48-47, 49-46, and 48-47 for Dean Kayach. Yeah, I thought maybe I messed up the numbers there, but no, that's right. Yeah, and he's also kind of near the end. They also just inducted him into the Hall of Fame, which is pretty cool. So I think, probably only seeing him one or two more times, because it's not really in the cards, and he even said that himself, not in the cards to get into the UFC or really any major organization, because he's just a little bit too old. He's not going to be contending anytime soon. Would he get one or two fights, maybe, Bellator, something like that? Maybe. But I have a feeling that, he's probably going to take maybe one, maybe two more fights in the BFL, end his career here, because I believe he is the record holder for appearances in BFL. I want to say maybe wins too. Because he's been around for quite a while in the BFL. So I would imagine you'd see him one more time to kind of cap it off with maybe, hopefully, another title defense there. And then, call it a career, get some coaching going, stuff like that. Great guy, great athlete. Fantastic to see that he won again. And I'm actually not even saying that he should be stopping fighting. I'm just going based on what he said, because he said actually that he was probably going to be stopping fighting soon, and he wasn't sure if he was going to fight again. I hope he does, because personally, you defended your belt. You did pretty well, and he still looked really, really good. He just happened to be facing somebody that was very, very tough and impossible to finish. That's really all that happened here. So yeah, very impressed. I'd like to see him again. I don't know if we will, though. Bonuses, KO of the night, Mateo Vogel with the title defense, also kind of from behind as well. I was pretty impressed with that. So Mateo Vogel got that. Sub of the night, there was only one sub, but it was also pretty impressive too. Sina Maani. Brawl of the night, Dean Kayach and JC Jamas. I think that was pretty obvious. It was a pretty good fight. It was a pretty good fight to watch. Very exciting to see there. Really on the edge of my seat. I didn't know who was going to, I didn't know what was going to happen, because any of these guys either one of them could have been finished at any moment, because it was really that close. And you don't want to tire yourself out, because don't get it wrong. Kayach was definitely a better striker for sure. But if you tire yourself out with somebody like Jamas, who is not going away, you can't finish him no matter what you do, unless you're like a huge, huge power puncher or something like that. You're not going to finish this guy. So you don't want to tire yourself out, or else he's going to end up finishing you. Or, he's going to edge the decision because he wins the last two rounds or something like that. So really could have gone either way at the end there. But anyway, so yeah, clear fight of the night. Most valuable fighter, Xavier Nash. He came in 6-5. That was the record. So I was like, oh, well, this is not going to be good for Xavier Nash on this one. But not only did he come in at 6-5 against somebody who was literally just in the UFC, he has not, this is his first fight outside the UFC in a long time. So, almost a decade, actually. I think he was in there quite a while. Yeah, so definitely the huge underdog. I don't think a lot of people were giving him much of a chance, but, dominated this fight. Really, there was no question that he was going to win this. As soon as, after the first couple rounds, it was like, okay, well, unless Connelly does something crazy here or gets a submission somehow, Nash is winning this easily, and he did. So, yeah, very impressed. Very, very impressed. I don't know. I honestly don't know if he's ever going to get a shot at something like the Contender Series or something like that, because they don't like it when people have records like that. They just don't like that kind of thing. But that being said, he did beat somebody who was just in the UFC. He literally, like, Connelly was just in the UFC in his last fight, which was just before COVID, I believe. Because they were kind of waiting for him to come back and fight in Vancouver, I guess, because they were planning on coming back, or at least in Canada in general. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with this. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, Xavier Nash, clear choice for most valuable fighter. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't know if he'll get hired by any major promotion, or at least not UFC, but could he get into Bellator, somebody like that? 100%, 100% he could. He is still young, not the best record, but when you beat somebody in the UFC like that, that turns a lot of heads, especially with bigger promotions outside of the UFC. They love that kind of thing. So yeah, I could very much see him finding a spot in a bigger promotion. But yeah, that was it for BFL 74. We will take a short break for about a minute, and then we will come back for quite possibly the best card of the year, UFC 280. We will be right back after this.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
And we're back with UFC 280, probably one of the best cards. Well, for sure, one of the best cards, possibly the best card of the year so far. And we will open, of course, with the main card, and that, as it stands at least, opens up with Caitlin Chookagian and Menifield, who we just talked about when I was talking about Alexa Grasso. Yeah. So, I mean, really, this matchup is important for the future of the flyweight division. And I mean, even if this wasn't in the main card, I'd be talking about it anyway, because it is very, very important for those rankings. As for who is going to take the win, I got to go with the odds makers on this one. I mean, we'll get into the odds, of course, in a little bit, which, by the way, I should get my banner ready. Yeah, there we go. It is lined up. It's not up there yet because we're not talking about the odds yet. But anyway, Chookagian, yes, she is probably, I would say, the third best person, maybe fourth in the rankings right now. I mean, I would say in the flyweight rankings, I should say. I mean, clearly Taila Santos, one step above her. And then, of course, Shevchenko. But other than that, based on the results that we've seen so far, you got to put Chookagian in third, though. There's just nobody else. I mean, she's not losing to anybody that is right there, except, of course, with what we saw in the last fight, which was Amanda Ribas dominating Chookagian. Honestly, I can't believe that was, I would say, one of the worst cards of the year. Worst judges cards of the year, one of them for sure, because Amanda Ribas absolutely robbed on that one. She clearly won the fight, absolutely dominated, to be honest, at least 2 of those 3 rounds. So I don't know how the judges gave it to Chookagian on that one, but here we are. So even on that, people are kind of losing a little bit on Chookagian. And really the biggest part of what I just said is that it was Amanda Hebos. Not that she's not good. I think she's amazing, actually. She's really cool, and I like her as a person too. But the problem is that Amanda Hebos was at 115 pounds before that. And Chookagian, is 125. And on the other side, Manon Fiorot, I'm pretty sure it's Fiorot. I mean, I took French for a long time. I should know. I don't think it's Fior, as they keep pronouncing it. That being said, anyway, Manon Fiorot, what was I going to say? She is huge. Honestly, I'm even surprised that she can make it down to 125. She is one of those people that is kind of being forced into 125 because there's no bantamweight division, essentially. That's pretty much what we're seeing here. Or actually, that's right, there's a bantamweight division. But still, she is big enough that she could fight at 135. So you're starting to see that kind of problem. And since we just saw Chookagian have a problem with somebody that's smaller than her, I would say that's pretty obviously going to be amplified as a problem in this one, where Fiorot is clearly much, much bigger in size compared to her. That is going to be a problem, especially when, they are both strikers too. So, it's not like Fiorot is some kind of crazy grappling wizard that's going to dominate her. But I would say that, clinch work, that kind of stuff, Fiorot is going to do that, push her against the fence, grind like that, get the elbows in, the stuff like that. Just pin her down. Even go for takedowns, pin her on the ground, do something like that. I think that's kind of what we're going to see by the much bigger Manon Fiorot. And that's what we're going to see. I don't think it's going to necessarily be the most entertaining fight. I really don't. But yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. And also, you got to remember too, Fiorot is, I don't know if she ended up winning the world championship for kickboxing, but she is a very, very impressive striker as well. So not only is she bigger than Chookagian, she's also probably a good striker, a better striker than her too. And that's actually what Chookagian is known for, is her striking. So it's kind of like, I just don't really see where Chookagian has an advantage, to be honest. So I would actually say that these odds are pretty generously, giving a lot of credit to Chookagian, which she deserves. But in this situation, in this matchup, I just don't see it. I don't think it's a good matchup for her at all. So banner, please. There it is. Chookagian plus 175 right now. Manon Fiorot minus 217. I actually might even say this is on the edge of being a parlay opportunity. The only reason I'm hesitant to do that, of course, would be that, literally what I just said with Amanda Hebos losing that fight. And especially in these women's fights, you see weird decisions like that constantly. So if there was ever going to be a weird decision, this is probably where it's going to be, especially when you're not in Vegas. So I don't know if I'm confident enough to throw in this to a parlay specifically because of that reason alone. But, if we were in Vegas and we knew that these judges were going to get it right, I would probably give the easy choice to Fiorot and I would put it in a parlay. But yeah, I'm not so sure about it, only because of the judges in this case. I don't know what they're going to do. You don't know. So anyway, I'm still going Fiorot though. The over-under, of course, as you would expect, heavily favored in that over 2.5 range, minus 350. Throw that into a parlay for sure, I would imagine. Why not? Excuse me. Although Fiorot could get a finish, but Chookagian doesn't really get finished. She was finished by, was it Andrade who got that? Yeah, I think it was Andrade who got that body kick that just destroyed Chookagian, finished her immediately. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if Fiorot might be able to do that. Who knows? So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, not crazy to do under 2.5 at plus 250, considering she is a champion, I think a champion striker in kickboxing. So maybe, but safer bet as always would be over 2.5, of course. Anyway, enough of that one. Beneil Dariush, Mateusz Gamrot, and this is where the absolutely insane matchups of the night start. I cannot wait for this one. Well, actually, really, the insane matchups start pretty much right away on the card, to be honest, with the prelims. Even a lot of the prelims are crazy, but on the main card, this is where it's like, okay, we're getting to the real stuff now. Dariush, Gamrot, both very solid, but honestly, I would say both of them very underrated. Very, very underrated in both situations here. And actually, we're going to see that earlier in the card too, in the prelims, which I'm going to talk about later. Another couple of underrated fighters. I would actually say the two most, actually, I'm confident in saying the two most underrated fighters in the entire UFC are both going to be fighting, and that would be Bilal Muhammad and Beneil Dariush. Nobody gives either one of these guys any kind of respect whatsoever. So yeah, very much underrated. But in this case, I would actually be confident in saying that both of them are going to lose. And I'm not saying that just because they are who they are. You got to look at who they're going up against, and the styles do not match up well for either one of them in this case. And we'll start with Dariush, like I said. Dariush, primarily a striker. I mean, he's definitely got the grappling too, but not necessarily. That's not really what he's known for. On the other side, Gamrot, honestly, probably definitely actually the most underrated person. I don't even know. I don't even know how to say it really, because people are starting to realize that he's good, but I don't think they realize how good Gamrot actually is. Because when I watched that last fight, going up to it, I was like, oh, Tsarukyan honestly could easily be the next champ. That is how good Tsarukyan is, and I still do believe that. But what Gamrot did, I mean, wow. Like, he shut him down. Like, that was a solid fight to watch. Incredible fight. And it just shows you how insanely good Gamrot is. He will never slow down. He is honestly could be unrivaled on the ground, except for, of course, Islam. But man, is he good on the ground. Gamrot is incredible on the ground. Incredible on the feet too. I mean, this guy really doesn't have any weak areas. He's just very, very solid. And I really could see him challenging for a title very soon. I really, really could. Gamrot is that good. And I mean, especially considering we were talking about Dariush possibly getting a title shot within the near future. So the fact that, I mean, Gamrot is actually the favorite, and deservedly so in this one, you got to imagine he is headed towards a title shot pretty soon if he keeps this up. And he really could make a huge statement in this fight that could get him, if not the title shot in the next one, probably not, honestly. He could definitely get, he's definitely going to get a solid matchup in his next one that then gets him a title shot. I could easily see that happening because he is this good. That is my long-winded way of saying I firmly believe that Gamrot will get a finish here, and that it's honestly not even going to be close, because although I do think Dariush is very much underrated compared to what people think he is, Gamrot is unbelievably good. He is, like, truly, when I was watching them grapple, I could not believe what I was watching. That is how good he was. So I think he's going to get a submission win, because I know actually, he's smart. He's one of the smartest fighters. He's only got one loss in his entire career, 21-1, which was a split decision loss to Guram Kutateladze in his UFC debut. So that's his one loss in his career. So, I mean, you're basically talking about somebody who's 22-0. Like, who else is 22-0? Like, literally the only person that's 22-0 is somebody like Volkanovski. That's who we're talking about. That's the level of expertise we're talking about here. And people kind of forget about that he is pretty much undefeated. So yeah, unbelievable. And like I said, he's smart enough to know Dariush has he might not have an advantage on the feet, but Gamrot has clearly the huge advantage on the ground, and that is where the huge difference comes in. So submission win, that's what I'm seeing, or at least ground and pound. So yeah, a finish on the ground, I would say, for Gamrot in that first round. I really, really do think that that's what we're going to see, an early finish for Gamrot. You go towards the odds, they are still close, remember, because I would say I don't think people really realize how good either one of these guys are, especially not Gamrot. So those odds are actually pretty close. But yeah, definitely on the Gamrot side. And honestly, I'm definitely throwing that in a parlay because I could easily have seen these odds going up to minus 250, minus 300 for Gamrot. And I'm sure that they probably already are on some sites. Just that on Bet99 right now, it's minus 200. That's what we're seeing right now. Anyway, over under is at 2.5. So they're seeing a decision win for Gamrot. I do think that that's reasonable, but I will say them on the ground, believe me when I say there is absolutely no comparison whatsoever. Gamrot is far and away much, much better on the ground. So I would confidently put some money down on the under 2.5, which is actually at plus 142 right now. Plus 142 for under 2.5, which is crazy. I think that's pretty wild, actually. That well, maybe not. It would be a little bit crazier if it was like minus 250 or something for over. But anyway, plus 142 for these two guys. Yeah, I'm taking that. I'm taking that for sure. So yeah, I do think that he is going to get a finish there, Gamrot. Anyway, moving on because we're only an hour and a half deep, but my dinner has been delivered and I want it. So we're going to try and speed this up a little bit. Then we've got, my God, what is this matchup even? I mean, nobody would have ever seen this matchup coming. I think this was the last matchup that anybody saw coming for both Petr Yan and Sugar Sean. I don't think anybody saw this matchup for either guy anytime soon. Just a weird, weird matchup. That being said, when you look into it farther, you realize how close this actually is. And my God, do these odds not do that justice at all? And I get it. I get it. I understand what people are saying. Yes, Petr Yan was the interim champ twice, actually. Or did he get the full champ once? I think that's right. No, he did he held the real belt, then lost it, of course, because of the DQ. And then, of course, got the interim belt. Anyway, so yes, he's got all that experience. Yes. He's also beaten, Sandhagen. He beat Aljo the first time. Let's be honest. I mean, obviously, he was destroying him. He beat, who else did he beat? I mean, he's beaten pretty much everybody. He beat Aldo. He's very, very good. But then on the other side, Sugar Sean kind of hasn't really lost yet. I mean, yeah, sure, he got injured or whatever and lost to Cheeto, whatever. I'm like him. I'm in one of those, I'm like him where it's kind of like, that's kind of a garbage loss. It is. It's not really a real loss at all. I mean, nothing that Cheeto did ended the fight. Like, I still don't know how people aren't seeing that. Yeah, he's lost, but did Cheeto do anything to cause that? No. No. Suga just tripped, kind of whatever he did, hurt his ankle or whatever it was, and kind of just literally couldn't stand up after that. So I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that. Like, of course he didn't win after that. Like, you can't recover from that. But again, that wasn't caused by anything that Chito did. So I thought that was kind of garbage. And other than that, he hasn't lost. So, and not only that, actually, he's been grabbing all these insane highlight reel TKO finishes because of his unique, very impressive striking and his movement and the length. He's got a very unusual, I'm just going to say an unusual body, let's say, for bantamweight. Very unusual. It would actually be exactly like me fighting a bantamweight. I am the exact same height as Suga, 5'11", kind of touching on that 6 feet. And, I can't even imagine. I mean, like, yeah, I weigh, 140 right now, but I'm not shredded. Like, I'm not huge like that. And if I was, I could never imagine cutting down to 135. I would never do that. I'd be fighting, 145, maybe 155 even. There's no way I can imagine that. So, well, probably 145 is what I'd be doing. But, like for Suga to cut down like that, I mean, he clearly has a size advantage in that kind of way, which is why this gets very interesting. And to make it even more interesting, this is a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight, which does favor somebody like O'Malley, who has a much better shot of winning right at the start. So this is really interesting, and I don't think people are giving O'Malley any kind of credit here. Like, I get it. He hasn't earned the right to get this kind of treatment necessarily. But if you watch the tape, if you ignore everything else and just watch that tape, you will see exactly what I mean, especially when Jan fought Sandhagen. And that is what makes this very interesting, because Jan lost those first 2 rounds to Sandhagen. He lost those first 2 rounds, and especially the first round. He was destroyed by Sandhagen in that opening round. And guess what? If you compare the tape, I've done this even, I've looked at it. If you compare the tape of Sandhagen and Suga in those two, just Suga in general, and then look at what Sandhagen was doing to Jan, those first 2 rounds, it is identical. Like, I'm not even kidding. It looks almost identical to what Suga is doing, but Suga is better at it. And that is why I'm concerned for betting on Jan. I'm dead serious about this. I am genuinely concerned. I'm worried about betting on Petr Yan on this because of this. Because he was struggling. He was actually struggling to hit Sandhagen. Yes, he was taking his time to see what Sandhagen was going to be doing, which he usually does, and which is why he lost that first round. But he got hit a lot. Like, to the point where it was like, and I even remember Sandhagen talking about this. Sandhagen was genuinely like, I honestly didn't know what was happening. I didn't really fully understand what was happening, because it seemed like he was letting me hit him. And that's what it looked like. It was like, what is happening? Like, Sandhagen is landing at will. He's landing all of these combos, like landed over and over and over and over and over and over again. Jan just kept walking into it constantly. And then he was also landing all of these kicks. And what does Suga do? Suga throws a lot of combos, a lot of movement, and he throws a lot of kicks. He's doing the exact same style that Sandhagen already did against Jan that was working for the first couple rounds. So it's like, what I can, it's like, for real, if Jan does not get the second, if he doesn't start quick, he could very much easily lose this fight, especially if O'Malley lands like Sandhagen did, because there's a clear power difference. Let me tell you, there is a massive power difference between Corey Sandhagen and Suga. Because Yes, Sandhagen's got those knees. He's got the flying knees to get those KOs, the highlight reel KOs that he's gotten. He's got all that. But he does not have the combos of Suga where he's landing just basic combos and knocking people out cold, like full on asleep on the canvas, destroyed. Like that's what he's doing to people. So that's why what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying is it's like this really, Jan can't let him he cannot get hit like that. He cannot get hit like he did against Sandhagen, because if he does, he's out. He's done. He's knocked out. So, that's why it's like this is a problem. This is a real problem that he's got to deal with. He is at a reach disadvantage. Suga has the reach. He's got the movement. He's got the power. He's got everything to get this going. Like really the only reason that all of us aren't throwing our money at O'Malley is because we know that Jan can recover and then win a decision in the second and third rounds. But that's what you're banking on for Jan. That's what you're banking on for Petr Yan right now, is you're banking on the fact that Suga cannot land anything significant, and that Jan will also outwork him in those two out of the 3 rounds. That's essentially what you're banking on here. And that's why I'm not confident enough to put this in a parlay. I'm really not. In fact, I'm actually at the point where I will actually be suggesting to people, hey, put some money on O'Malley getting a KO. Put a little bit. I'm not saying only bet on Suga. Oh, I'm not saying that. I am saying you can bet on Petr, and I will be putting money on Petr in a couple of different ways myself and how I bet. But the money, I mean, the fact that it is really that close, that Suga could land anything at any moment and use that movement to even win the first round and possibly come out ahead the second round because of his movement and his style of fighting, or the fact that Jan just walks in regularly. He will walk into everything. That's his style. He's a tank, literally a tank. He walks in and just takes it right on the chin constantly. You can't do that against Suga. So it's like, if he doesn't take Suga seriously, he will get knocked out. That's why I'm like, for the price of it, the clear way to go for the price of it is actually on the O'Malley side. That being said, yes, I will be putting some money on Petr Yan, but I will definitely also be putting money on an O'Malley KO, because I really, really do think people are underestimating this, because he has a genuine, very good chance of getting a KO here. And will I look like an idiot next week if O'Malley gets dominated in a decision, he can't land anything? Yes, I will look stupid. But if he gets a KO, I'll look like a fucking genius. But not even that. That aside, he really does. Like I said, physically speaking, and the style of both of these guys, it really does actually favor O'Malley. The only reason I'm not doing that, the only reason I'm not heavily putting everything towards O'Malley, is because you gotta go with the championship experience of Jan and the boxing experience of Jan, because you got to imagine that, if he really does take this seriously, if he takes this seriously, that Suga is a genuine threat and he's smart about it, Jan should be able to win. But if he doesn't take this seriously, if he just walks straight in like he always does, if he just walks through it and doesn't take O'Malley's power seriously, you're looking at a massive upset and, honestly, a title shot for O'Malley. Because who else is getting it? Seriously, think about that for a second. If O'Malley gets a knockout here, he will be getting the next title shot. There is absolutely nobody who is jumping ahead of O'Malley at that point, because he would have knocked out somebody who just held the interim belt and the belt before Sterling. So you're looking at, that's what you're actually Jan wouldn't be getting a title shot on in this case if he wins, because I mean, everybody kind of expects him to win. But like I said, if O'Malley does it, that's what you're seeing next. So I'm actually rooting for O'Malley too. I mean, I'm a huge, huge fan, but it's not even, again, I really do take that outside of my picks. I don't think about that at all, which is why, like I said, I really do think I am putting money on Jan. But like I said, Jan has to take this seriously. And I don't know if he is or not. You can't tell because he doesn't always take everything seriously. That's the problem. Because he did that. That's what he did with Aljo. He didn't take him seriously. And we saw what happened. Like he thought, wow, I dominated that first fight. I'm just going to easily win this one. Well, too bad. I'm sure he could have done more to win that fight and he didn't. So I just, you got to wonder, especially with these styles. Or, Jan is going to come in there overconfident and he's going to try to get a KO himself and then get clipped. It's just as easy as that. You don't take a couple of seconds seriously with Sean and you're on your back. That's it. So I don't know. I like I said, this is dead even to me. It really is on the odds. This should be much, much closer, which is exactly why I am putting some money on O'Malley, because I'll get to the odds right here, which, by the way, are only going to get more one-sided as the week goes on. So right now, minus 275 for Jan and plus 220 for O'Malley. Like I said, I would imagine that by the end of the week, you're going to see Jan probably 325, 300, 325, maybe even up to 350, because people are not going to take Suga seriously. So, when you start getting into the first round KO, second round KO kind of deal on the actual parts, the prop bets there, you're going to make some serious, serious money if he actually does it. And like I said, not as crazy as it sounds. So lots to digest with what I just said. That was also a huge, huge long spiel about what everything that I just said. But I got to go with Jan by decision. That is how I'm going with it. But I will also be putting money, like I said, on a first, probably even a second round finish for Suga on that one, or even maybe just KO in general as the prop bet. Yeah. But anyway, so that's it for that one. And then over under, they are favoring the over on this one, minus 209 for over. But like I said, that KO for O'Malley is very much in the cards. Am I going to waste, am I going to jump on the plus 157 for under 2.5 though? No, I'm not going to be doing that. It's just not worth it. It's not worth the money. The clear way to go with it, of course, would be the minus 209, because I would say that does make the most amount of sense. But like I said, it's not out of the question for, wow, we're seeing some huge lag here. It's not out of the question at all for O'Malley to get the win here. We're losing daylight here. It's getting darker in here. Moving on. Another bantamweight fight, of course. The title fight. We're ramping up the evening. Aljamain Sterling, and TJ Dillashaw on this one. I gotta say, I'm not really hugely convinced that this is going to be all that close. Yes, Dillashaw, of course, would have the striking advantage. I think that's pretty clear. But I also think it's pretty clear that Sterling has the obvious grappling advantage on the ground. And really what makes the difference to me is what's happened in these recent fights. Yes, Aljo did submit Corey Sandhagen in the first round. I think even he admitted he was a little bit lucky with that, because he got Corey Sandhagen down while they were still dry right at the start of the first round. So that he basically had no chance of getting out of the submission because he was still dry. So we don't know what would happen there. But that aside, I mean, like most people, I kind of thought that Sandhagen beat Dillashaw. I think he pretty clearly did. So, it's kind of like, when you're doing the MMA math on this one, you're already heavily favoring the Sterling side. But even that alone, Sterling can handle it. Like he just dealt with Petr Yan, who we literally just talked about having some of the best boxing in the division. So, like, I mean, Sterling already got through that. Honestly, I think TJ Dillashaw is kind of a worse version of that, except for Dillashaw is better at grappling than Yan. That's really the only difference, is that Dillashaw is more of an MMA guy where he's well-rounded. And then, of course, Sandhagen is more of a striker. But even so, and Yan is more of a striker too. But even so, Dillashaw kind of lost that fight. And, if Sterling can take down Yan like that and dominate him on the ground like that, I think he can easily do the same thing to Dillashaw, because Yan, I would say, is probably harder to take down. Yan's a hard guy to take down. Whereas Dillashaw, he's also hard to take down, but still, there's just that difference there. Plus, you got to remember the size. Dillashaw was fighting, he fought for one fight, admittedly, and he was probably using the drugs hardcore to get down to that weight, but he was fighting at 125. Meanwhile, Sterling, it is honestly a fucking miracle that he even makes it down to bantamweight, because this guy is huge. He is huge. So to me, Sterling has the edge in, I would say, every single category except for striking, which Dillashaw has. He's also got the recent success. I just don't see, and as you're talking about 5 rounds too, once again. So can Dillashaw jump ahead with winning rounds 1, 2, and 3? Maybe. But I think what's more likely is you're going to be seeing Dillashaw be really good in the first 2 rounds. And then, then Sterling's going to kind of run away a little bit with the grappling. And then that's all it's going to be. To the point where I actually think he's probably pretty easily going to get a submission. I really do. Sterling is that good on the ground that I would confidently say that he's going to get enough opportunities on the ground to then get a submission win. That's where I'm going with it. I really do think that Aljamain is going to get that finish there on the ground. So that's my prediction for that one. Sterling by probably submission. But yeah, by finish at least. And the odds are very close, and rightfully so. I don't think it's going to be a complete shutout. Like, I do think Dillashaw is going to have a pretty good chance, and he's going to make it quite the fight. And I really cannot wait for this fight too. I mean, like I said, every single fight, honestly, on this entire card pretty much is an absolute banger. So this is another one of those, especially, like I said, in the best division in the UFC. Clearly bantamweight is the best division in the UFC. Yeah. Anyway, minus 175 for Sterling, plus 142 for Dillashaw. Like I said, pretty close. You got to go with Sterling, though. There's just so many advantages on that Sterling side that you got to go with it. You got to go with that. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Anyway, yeah. So that's the way I'm going with it. No parlays, though, I don't think, for this one. It's a little, minus 175. Also, Dillashaw is the kind of guy that, he wins just because he is who he is, I guess. Like, he didn't really deserve to win that Sandhagen fight, and he still won. So, and we've seen Sterling get screwed. There's been some weird decisions on both of these guys' sides. So I don't know. This is going to be another one where I'd be worried about the judges. So, which is why I'm really hoping that Sterling gets that finish, because if he doesn't get the finish, somehow I feel like he's going to get screwed in the decision. I have a feeling that that's going to be how it's going to be going. So I really hope that Sterling can get that submission, just for the sake of our bets, of course. Also for the sake of humanity, because Dillashaw is kind of a douche, and he Yeah, that whole EPO thing was ridiculous. For getting banned for 2 years like that. Jesus. Awful. To even be doing that is what I mean. To be cheating for that long and getting away with it and then getting caught like that, it's kind of like, look at the people you fucked over for the belt like that. Anyway, drama aside, we're not going to get into that. But yeah, just for the sake of everything, I hope that Sterling gets that submission. Will he get it? I don't know. But that's what I think that is actually the most likely thing that could happen here. Over under 4.5 rounds. So they're really, really going for that decision once again. Just like it's actually almost the exact same odds as that Jan and O'Malley one, but it is 5 rounds. Remember that. I would actually be kind of going for the under on this one because, yeah, I think there's a lot going for it. And I mean, minus 200 over 4.5 could easily put some money on that too. But I gotta say, these two guys, I mean, they're both pretty dangerous guys. So, and especially with Sterling on the ground, I just think there's the mismatch there is big enough where it's like I would be confident enough to put some money on the under 4.5 for plus 154. Definitely enough to put money on a Sterling submission for sure. Not picking any rounds, that would be, then you're putting a little bit too much money on being too specific. But, yeah, submission for Sterling. I think that is well within the realm of possibility. Then the end of the night, one of the best matchups we've seen all year, just because we don't really know what to expect whatsoever, I would say. I don't really know. I don't think anybody truly knows how this is going to, I mean, to a certain extent, we know a lot that's going to happen, but how are both of them going to handle the extreme danger coming at them? We have no idea. And that's what makes this so intriguing. Charles wow, I didn't even say their names. Charles Oliveira, of course, and Islam Makhachev. That's, of course, who I was talking about there. Lightweight title fight. By the way, we'll be seeing a new champion on either side here. A little bit silly, but, technically it's true because, of course, Oliveira missed weight. He didn't really. I mean, it was a faulty scale. Lost the belt like that. Absolute garbage. I mean, what a shit show that is. So we will see a new champion, but will we? I don't know. Could go either way though. Anyway, but it really could go either way on this. And this is how I'm seeing this fight on this one. You've got Islam on one side, and I don't think there's any question on anybody's mind what he's going to be doing for 100% of this fight. He will, without a doubt, be shooting in for takedowns, trying to get this to the ground, maybe not submitting him, but controlling him down there, ground and pound, submissions, blah, 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 the entire time. That is exactly what Islam is going to be doing. There is absolutely no doubt, because everybody, I would assume in his camp, because if they don't tell him that, he's screwed, that Oliveira is far and away much better at striking. I would say Oliveira is the clear striker in this matchup. Islam, clear. I mean, he's going to be the wrestler in literally every single matchup he's ever going to be in for the rest of his life. That's just who he is. Same as Khabib. They're always going to be the wrestlers. There is never a situation where Islam is not going to be the wrestler. So that's really what we're seeing here. And if you think about it like that, that is where this matchup starts to completely unravel, and you start to see a fairly clear favorite, I would say. And I feel like a lot of people aren't necessarily looking at that part of it, which is why we're seeing the odds the way we are. And what's interesting actually is Chael Sonnen and somebody else actually that he was talking to described exactly my thoughts that I had already written down. He said them yesterday, and I was like, this is exactly what I was going to say today. And it's that Oliveira has knocked people out regularly, not even just random people. He knocked out Michael Chandler in the second round. That's what we're dealing with. You know who didn't knock out Michael Chandler? Justin Gaethje didn't knock out Michael Chandler. Nobody knocked out Michael Chandler in the UFC. And except for Oliveira, of course, who did it in the second round. And guess what? He knocked him. I think he knocked him down a couple of times. So he has the power. He's got the striking ability and the power against, to be honest, who I think is one of the better strikers in the division. I really do think that Chandler I really think he easily could have been the champ right now. I mean, he almost knocked out Oliveira, so he easily could have been the champ. But anyway, so that's what you're working with here. You're working with really one of the best strikers in the division in Oliveira against somebody who basically has minimal striking. I don't want to say no striking. I'm not going to be that disrespectful to Islam's striking. But let's be honest, we have never seen his striking. And this is exactly what Sonnen was saying too. It's like, you've seen Oliveira knock all these people out, and you have seen Islam get knocked out once, by the way. He has been knocked out in the first round of another fight. That has happened. That was his only loss. He was knocked out in the first round. And we've never really seen him strike with anybody because he doesn't do that. And I guarantee you that is exactly what he was working on this camp. And don't think that I wasn't thinking about that. I know that was probably about like 80-90% of his camp this time was all on striking because they know how good Oliveira is. But guess what? You can't learn that. It's just as simple as that. You cannot learn that much that fast to catch up to somebody who's that good. It would be like saying Oliveira was working for 6 or 8 months on his wrestling to wrestle Islam. Like, seriously, that would be absurd. That would be absurd to say that, Oliveira was doing, putting all of his time into wrestling so that he's going to out wrestle Islam. That would be saying the same thing. It's just, that would be laughable, honestly. So it's the same thing the other way. And I think that's what a lot of people aren't necessarily realizing, is that Oliveira is just way better at striking to the point where that's what's going to happen. That's my prediction, is that Oliveira, there's going to be nothing coming back at him. And Oliveira is going to either get the first round KO or he's going to get the second round, or really any time that he gets an opening, he's probably going to get the KO. I really fully believe that because he is so good. He is so much better on the feet that I just cannot see. Like, I just think that is pretty clearly what's going to be happening here. Knockout Oliveira. And funny enough, that's exactly what Charles is saying too. He's like, I'm going to knock him out in the first round. And Charles doesn't do that kind of thing. He is not the kind of guy that runs his mouth on social media and says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He's not McGregor. He's not the kind of guy that calls people out like that and says wild shit. And this is the only time I have ever heard him say something like that, where he is specifically outright saying, I am going to knock him out in the first round. And to be honest, I find that hard to argue. I really do. I find that very hard to argue because, just because of the striking alone. But then another thing that Chael pointed out, and I'll point it out too, is that Islam has only faced people that, actually, no. What was I going to say? Yeah, Islam has kind of only faced people that struggle with that kind of strategy, people that struggle with grappling. I mean, that's literally every single one of his last 4 or 5 fights is people that don't normally fight on the ground. I'm not saying they're all bad on the ground, but all of them are known for their striking, every single one of them. Whereas Oliveira, he has been fighting people that have mostly been known for their striking. But guess what? He submitted every single one of them. So that tells you how much better he is than the average striker at the ground game. So already that tells you, so, Oliveira not going to be out of his depth on the ground at all. Will he get taken down? Maybe, probably. Yeah, probably. He probably will. But guess what? He's fine with that. He can maybe get back up. Maybe he won't even get back up, but he'll be attacking those submissions and he'll weather through it. But guess what? Every fight starts on the feet, and he's got to get him down. That is Islam's way of winning this fight. He's got to get him down. And if he doesn't do it, he's screwed. That's the difference. And that is why I honestly don't know why you would be putting money on Islam. And actually, somebody else was saying too. Oh, actually, I think, funny enough, I think it was actually Chael again in a different video. He pointed this out, and I thought that was really interesting. And I've carried this into every matchup that's like this that I've seen since, which is exactly why I got Jan, Xiaonan, and Grasso right this time. Guess what? We're seeing the same matchup again. Pretty much, to a certain extent, except for now we're seeing a more extreme version of it. But that's what you're seeing, is that Islam has to get 3 dominant takedowns and keep him down in the fight for 3 rounds. He has to do that in 3 rounds. And the rest of the time, he has to not get knocked out. That is what Islam has to do. The only thing that Charles has to do is not get taken down. That's all he has to do. If he doesn't get taken down, or if he gets taken down in only 2 of the rounds, guess what? He wins. Charles is the champ. That's all he's got to do. All he's got to do is don't get taken down. And outside of that, if he does anything more than that, as in lands anything significant at all, because he's massive and a huge power puncher, he probably won also. So you see what I mean? It's like they're getting tripped up by the fact that Makhachev has been dominating all of these people that don't know how to really defend against that kind of thing. And Oliveira, not one of those people. In fact, he's one of the guys that he's been submitting people. So it's kind of laughable to think that, Makhachev is going to somehow submit him. Like, it's not happening. Could he dominate him by controlling him on the ground? Yes, he can. But he's got to take him down first. He's got to avoid the submissions, and he's got to avoid all of the striking. Because if he gets hit even once by something big, that fight's done. And I seriously do mean that. One time. If Charles lands anything big, anything huge, that's it. Because that's exactly what he's done to every single person. That's exactly what he did to Chandler too. He only needed to land a couple of big ones. He landed one big one, dropped him back, went in for the ground and pound, and that was it. And if he does he could easily do the exact same thing here, except for it would be easier because Islam is not as good of a striker as Chandler. So that's, over and over, we keep landing on that same thing. And I hope there's a lot of people that end up listening to this specific part of it, because there is a lot of money on the Oliveira side right now. Right now, as it stands, and now we'll get into the odds, plus 142 for Oliveira. Based on what I just said, how could Oliveira not be the favorite? Think about that for a second too. He has not lost. He's won 11 in a row. He's won 11 in a row against all of the top people in the division, finished all the top people in the division. And on the other side, you have Islam, who has not done that at all. And you're telling me that you think, that Makhachev is the favorite in this? What are we doing here? Minus 175. And Oliveira has every single advantage except for the grappling control. Just the control. Not even the submissions. The submissions are BJJ, which, by the way, Oliveira is better at. So just the grappling. We're talking about only a heavy grappler. I just don't see, is it possible? Yes, of course it's possible. But there are so many ways for Oliveira to win, and there's only one way for Makhachev to win, and it's not even the most likely way that this fight is going to be going. So it's lunacy to me that Oliveira is the underdog in this. And I will be putting a lot of money on the fact that Oliveira is going to win this. We're going all in on this one. I mean, this is seriously, I'm not even kidding. Like, I don't normally suggest betting heavy on underdogs, but honestly, Oliveira is the underdog that you want to put your money on. He has proven himself over and over and over and over and over again that he is the champ, and he can get a knockout. So this is a no-brainer. Oliveira all day, and I will be putting a lot of money on it for sure. And by knockout, I mean, you can go crazier with the prop bets too. You know, go for the knockout for Oliveira. That's got to be in the first round, especially, or even the second round. That's gotta be plus 300, plus 400 based on these betting lines. I don't have it in front of me because they haven't done it yet, so I don't know. But I'm imagining that's probably what it would be. So, I mean, the money on this, the money that Oliveira can get you on this is crazy. So you'd be crazy not to go on that. The over-under on this, it's getting a little dark. It's getting really dark in here now, actually. You can tell, of course, I'm on the West Coast because now it's getting dark. It's 6:20, and I'm up farther north, of course, in Vancouver. I mean, if I was up north, if north, it would be dark at 5 or something crazy like that. Anyway, what am I doing here? Continue. I need to have my dinner too. Over under is actually at 2.5 rounds, so they really do see a finish, and I think that's pretty fair. But you know, based on the odds, again, that does seem a little strange to think that they see a finish, because then they're seeing Islam getting a finish, which I think is bizarre, because how is he going to get a finish? You know, like how is he getting the finish? Is he going to dominate him on the ground and get a TKO? Maybe, but honestly, I think Oliveira is so good on the ground. I don't think he's not dumb enough or bad enough to get, knocked out like that. He's not that kind of guy, and he's not going to get submitted. So I just don't see where the finish, the odds on this one are a little bit weird. If you're being realistic about the talents of both of these people, which I don't think they are. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing here. They're getting tripped up by the name and tripped up by what we've just seen, against far worse people than Oliveira, by the way. I would be probably going towards the under, because it is at 2.5. That means, can we get it done before halfway through the third round? Maybe, maybe. But honestly, the real money here would then clearly be to go over. Because if you don't think that Islam is going to get knocked out, then, we're probably seeing a decision then at that point. Because I don't think that Oliveira can get a submission, because he'd be on the bottom and Islam can defend that. And I don't think Islam can submit Oliveira. So really, then the only other option would be that Oliveira knocks out Islam. So, again, that's really the only thing that I'm seeing here over and over is Oliveira knockout. And it's like, if you don't think that's going to happen, or at least in the first 2 rounds, then plus 125 for over 2.5. I mean, that's a no-brainer all day. The money for sure is on that side. So based on the statistics and the likelihood of everything happening and the money of it all, you'd have to probably go with that over 2.5. Especially since, these are smart guys. They're not going to waste their energy in the first couple rounds like that. They're not going to burn themselves out too. They might even take it a little slower. I mean, maybe I'm getting crazy here because they don't take things slow. So maybe I'll just not go too far down that rabbit hole. But still, definitely the money is way more so on that over 2.5 side at plus 125. Man, we'll quickly go through these prelims. There's only 3 that I want to talk about, and we'll just quickly run through them because I would say there's a fairly clear way to go on all 3 of them, and it's why I'm talking about them. Muhammad Mokaev, this is where I was saying our fellow Canadian is going to get absolutely annihilated once again. Just really not that close at all. I mean, Malcolm Gordon losing quite a few times now, not quite a few. In the first round, I mean, he was submitted by Amir Albazi, who is very similar to Muhammad Mokaev, both relentless and dangerous submission artists. So for me, Mokaev first round submission. That's the way I'm going all day. I don't think Malcolm Gordon can handle all that grappling pressure. If not, I mean, if it's not an early submission, you're going to see a dominant decision like what Mokaev had in his last fight, where it really wasn't even close. He's just so good at grappling, and he's just so overwhelming with his pace that people just can't keep up. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. So easy, dominant win for Muhammad Mokaev. We're going to see, I'm sure. And I haven't looked. This is the first time I'm seeing the odds. The odds minus 1,300 for Mokaev. If you didn't believe me that it was going to be one-sided, maybe those odds will convince you. So not much money there for any kind of anything. But, the over-under is still looking good. It's over-under 1.5. But it's even. It's actually plus 100 for over 1.5, minus 128 for under 1.5. I'd go with the under probably. But if you think Gordon can hang on, because that other guy did. I mean, it was that other guy, I can't remember his name, who was fighting Mokaev last time. He made it. He made it to the decision. So Gordon could maybe do that. It's not going to be a close decision, but he could make it. So plus 100 also not necessarily that crazy to do. That being said, I don't think he's going to be able to withstand it, and I do think there's going to be a first round finish. Anyway, that's where the money is, the prop bets on that one. Then we've got Mahmoud Muradov, Caio Borralho. Caio Borralho being top 3 right now for Rookie of the Year. I've got Jailton Almeida for Rookie of the Year, Caio Borralho probably in second, and then you've kind of got a toss up. You got Mokaev, you got other people that are out of my mind right now, but yeah, Caio Borralho probably the second best Rookie of the Year so far. Honestly, has not even been challenged yet. I haven't even seen him in really a close fight. It has not been close so far. And to be honest, I don't really think this one is going to be all that close either. I think Caio Borralho is going to dominate this fight. And he's also probably going to get a fairly easy finish. I say that not because I don't think Muradov is good. I actually do think Mahmoud Muradov is a very good contender. That being said, he was just submitted by Gerald Mearshart in the second round, and he also, his wins, not over really the best people. And then on the other side, like I said, you've got Caio Borralho, who's running through people using his grappling. So if he was just submitted by Mearshart, he's going to get annihilated by Caio Borralho here, because Borralho, all he looks for is to drag you to the ground and submit you. So I think that's pretty easily what he's going to do here. First round, second round submission for Caio Borralho. It's going to be an easy one. I really do think so. And the odds, obviously much closer, because I think actually all of the ones on this card are fairly close, except for that one that we just talked about. There it is. Minus 209 for Borralho. So they're clearly favoring him. Throwing this in a parlay for sure. Plus 166 for Muradov. Makes a lot of sense. Over under is at 1.5. And the under is actually plus 166. And with the the wild difference in skill on the ground, I actually think plus 166 for under 1.5. That's a steal. That is a steal. And I will be putting money on that. Under 1.5 plus 166 for Bojalio. Well, I mean, actually, you could go either way on that because it doesn't actually specifically say Bojalio. It's just over under. So yeah, the over under on that. I mean, the under on that plus 166 for under 1.5. Doing that all day long. All day long. Love it. And for the last one of the night, and then I can finally have my dinner. I'm starving. Bilal Muhammad, Sean Brady. These are the other two that I said were wildly underrated, especially Bilal. Nobody takes him seriously at all. And nobody really talks about Sean Brady either. The guy's undefeated. He is 15-0. He's 15-0, and nobody talks about him at all. And Bilal Muhammad, huge win streak, looks very good. Again, nobody really talks about him. Nobody takes him seriously. I don't really like him. I don't find him that entertaining either. Yeah, I don't really like him either. But still, I will admit, though, that he is very talented, and I did pick him to easily beat Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, I put money on that all day. I even told you guys that was going to be wildly one-sided. But yeah. And by that same token, I mean, I don't think this one's going to be wildly one-sided, but I will say, you know, they both have a similar style. They're both grapplers, clearly both trying to do that, get that going. But so then really what actually ends up happening in that scenario, like 3/4 of the time, is the best striker will win because the grappling will kind of, you know, even out, except for Brady in this case he is the better grappler still. Even so, you've got the grappling of Brady. He's also probably bigger than Bilal, and he's got better striking. So to me, the clear choice on that would be Brady, and he's at minus 145 right now because it is really, really close. So, yeah, definitely some money to be made on that one because it is so close. And especially if you're going Brady minus 145, I think that's a great, great betting line. And over under is at 2.5. I think it's pretty clearly going to be over at minus 286, over 2.5, because neither one of these guys really gets finishes at all. There's a lot of decisions for both of them. So I think that's the clear way to go on this one would be over at minus 286. And speaking of over, we're done now. Kind of. I do want to quickly go through a couple of the parlays and then we'll stop. We'll just quickly run through them though. The first fight of the night, Carol Hosa. I mean, she is far and away, like not even close, like just way better than Lena Landsberg. So that's going to be dominant. Minus 325. Yeah, we're throwing that in a parlay. Muhammad Mokaev at minus 1300. It's not worth it. Let's be honest. I mean, you know, yeah, he is probably going to win, but it is not worth that kind of risk at all. At all. Not to throw in a parlay, not to ruin a parlay for what? An extra $2 when you put in 100 or something like that. You know, it's like there's just not a whole lot of value there at all. There's actually no value there whatsoever. So probably just ignore that one in the parlays. Petrosian minus 217. That's definitely one I could take advantage of. I mean, Dobson's okay. Petrosian, very much more well-rounded. I would probably go that in a parlay, minus 217 possibly. The next one on here that I'm looking at, got to be Bojalio, minus 209. You got to throw him in that all day. Brady and Bilal, no. You know, stay away from that one in the parlays, I would say. It's too close. It's too close. Fiorot, minus 217. You got to go with that. Gamrot, minus 200. Got to go with that. Again, I'm staying all the way out of it with Piotr Yan and O'Malley. I'm staying out of it with the parlays. There's no way I'm throwing Yan in a parlay when there's a very good chance that Sean could be getting a KO here. Sterling, you know, you might want to throw him in a parlay. I'm not opposed to that. But yeah, And then, of course, the main event. I don't really throw underdogs into the parlays that I give you guys. So I don't know if I want to throw Oliveira in, but I gotta say, he's got a much better chance of winning this fight than Islam does. But am I confident enough to put in a parlay? Probably not. Probably not. So let's quickly go through that again. That was Gamrot, Fiorot, Bohalio, Petrosian, and then Karahosa. Those are the parlays for the night. That is it for me. Get that banner out of here. And then next week, my God, do we have a busy week next week? We've got 2 of those Road to UFC cards. Those are both on Sunday. We've got UFC 280, of course, to talk about. And then we've got another Vegas card coming up after that, which we will be talking about. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. It's a long one. I hope some people got something out of it, and even, maybe got, especially with the Oliveira one. My God, is there a lot of money on that one? And even with the, Sugar Sean, he could get that KO. Anyway, that's enough for me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out Area 51 for the other sports. All my socials are also below. That would be Twitter, Insta, YouTube. That is where I put all my bonuses. I post them on Twitter and Insta. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see ya next time.